Proud sponsor of the Performers Pod, Vendettaverse.com. Join award-winning porn star Bella Vendetta's new website, Vendettaverse.com, featuring writing, interviews, guest models, live shows, and weekly photo sets and videos. This is the only place Bella uploads her 20 years of vintage Vendetta content from the vault. Membership options include monthly, yearly, and print of the month club. Join today for less than the price of a lap dance. Vendettaverse.com. The Performers Pod. I'm here today with AVN-nominated performer Ruby Riots. I'm so excited to talk to you. If people don't know, you're part of my BDSM collective and just like an actual person who's been to my actual house. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me. I'm stoked to be here.
Yeah, I'm really excited to talk to you. I've had on so many Bay Area people lately. And I really want to hear your story about being in Bay Area porn because I feel, at least, I think you came in a little bit later than I think the early stuff in like the mid 2000s that was going on here. And when did you kind of come into the Bay? Are you from the Bay originally?
No, I'm not. Yeah, I'm a transplant. So I am originally from Washington State, but I've been in California for, probably like almost 20 years, maybe
Wow.
20 years. I'm not sure. And then I've been in the Bay Area specifically for the last 10 years.
So what was going kind of on in porn when you moved here? Were you doing porn when you moved to the Bay originally?
No, not originally. No. To be honest, like I wasn't really paying attention to what was going on in porn so much when I first moved here, because when I first moved to the Bay Area, I was freshly 18. So yeah, I didn't really get in the know about it until more recent years.
Yeah, when did you kind of start becoming aware of it? Because yeah, I've interviewed a lot of people and it seemed like there was such a kind of just active porn scene going on here. And like, I mean, obviously when like Crashpad and Trouble Films first started in like the aughts, I guess you would call it, right? Is that what we're calling that decade now?
I didn't know they were calling it that.
I like the zeros. And then
Okay.
like, yeah, I moved here in 2013 and I felt
Mhm.
like everyone was moving here for porn at the time. And like, I was in West Oakland. I feel like everyone was kind of doing that stuff between there and Emeryville. When did you kind of like start being involved in the porn world here?
Being involved in the Bay Area porn industry and the porn industry in general, like I didn't really start until about like 2018, 2019. Like I would say like my debut with like actual studio porn was 2019. So I'm pretty new.
So it was like after the whole Armory thing stopped
Yeah.
happening.
I was aware of it. Like I toured the Armory. And I do admit that I applied to kink in 2015 when I first started doing camming, but that didn't go anywhere.
I mean, I think that's something I definitely want to talk about with us and just our BDSM collective, because we all kind of dealt with some form of rejection from kink.com. And I feel like, especially back then, they were like, oh, if you're going to do porn in the Bay Area, that's what you do. That's a company you can make real money for, who are paying you over $1,000 for a shoot and stuff. So I just think that's why it's so special that we started the East Bay Brats. It's all femme and we just entirely own it ourselves, and it's all on kind of our own terms and not really waiting to hear from a casting director being like, oh, I want you to do this with your body, or I want you to lose this amount of weight, or why can't your body do this, you know?
Yeah. In a way, I am kind of relieved that I never heard from them, but I was literally a nobody when I applied. So it makes sense that I never heard from them. But yeah, just from all the things I've heard of people who have actually been in contact with kink, like kink.com, not 100% sure that would have been for the benefit of my mental health, especially surrounding body image. That's for sure.
Yeah.
I don't think I had the look they were going for. back then, and I probably still don't know. I don't know.
You're like way too cool for them anyway. It's fine.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah. I have to say, I never had an anxiety attack in my life before working in that building. I just feel
Wow.
like it was, I don't think it's the BDSM happening is like the bad thing there. I think it's just the
Mhm.
Silicon Valley culture
Oh yeah, that
mixed
is super
with,
toxic for sure.
yeah, it's just like, I understand why these companies, whether it's porn or a tech company, it's just like, oh, just stay at work more. We'll give you more perks. You can have more reason to be at work. But then in reality, you have people like burn themselves out. I
Hmm.
think there's really intense hierarchies that can be created when your entire life's kind of built around one building. And especially with the Armory, if you work there, you got to drink half off at the bar next door that they owned.
Oh yeah.
So it was very much like being like, oh, I showed up at 10 and now I'm not leaving until midnight back to Oakland, where it really becomes your whole life. I feel like it at some point.
Hmm. Yeah, that sounds like a lot for sure.
Yeah. Also, just like having tour guides come through and like, it's a weird experience when you're just camming and you're like, okay, I have to go to the bathroom to do an enema or something. And then there's like a group of people walking by and then they're looking at you like, oh, wow, I think that's a porn star.
Yeah, I
But
mean the tour was pretty cool. I didn't see anybody though when I was there.
it's a really historic, interesting building. Like if you really look
Yeah,
into the history of it.
the building itself is amazing, and I'm glad that the building is still there. But yeah, I hope that it can hopefully be open to the public some more, and not just people who can rent it out and afford that.
Yeah, I think it's been empty for a very long time. I don't
Oh, that's wild.
think there's anything in it. I feel like that's kind of the story of San Francisco now, where everything's just kind of empty and it's like it's too
Oh,
expensive
yeah.
for anyone to rent, but they're all empty. So
Yeah. Yeah, I'm sure COVID didn't help with that.
definitely not. It's just such a strange thing. I was talking to Mona Wales about that. They were on my
Mhm.
last podcast and just going down so many streets in the city that, Valencia being like, oh, I know what this is. And it's just completely different.
Dang. Yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, things have changed a lot.
So
Yeah.
you kind of entered porn during some of those changes, I feel like, in the Bay. So like what really got you interested? Were you feeling like influences from different like performers or filmmakers that made you want to get involved, or what kind of drew you in?
Yeah, there were some influences. What drew me in though is like I started modeling back in like 2016, and
Mhm.
I feel like modeling can easily lend itself to getting into porn because people
Yeah.
see you half naked on the internet and they're like, okay, well, can I see you doing a video of this? So I was like, oh, there's money that could be made here. And I was interested because I started doing like some clip making back in 2015.
Mhm.
And yeah, I think like some of my influences though were like people like Susie Q.
Hell
Um,
yeah.
I attended a class that she taught. I think it was at the Armory Club. And after the class, I asked her like, what would you recommend for getting into porn? And she gave me some advice, which was basically like get an OnlyFans and a Twitter and a Tumblr, which no longer exists, RIP. But it was great advice. And yeah, I think Courtney Trouble, of course, had a huge influence as well. And yeah, my friends, Lita Letterus, for instance, like also
Mhm.
helped kind of guide me into that direction of making awesome queer Bay Area porn with some really amazing people. Fortunately, I kind of started with like the straight vanilla porn niche, and that's honestly not really my preference. But now that I have like a little bit of a following, I feel like it's easier now for me to kind of move more into a direction of what I'm interested in, which is more queer oriented, working with people of color as well as queer trans people, not just straight cis white men.
Yeah, for sure. I just feel like what you and Lita brought to Trouble Films was like so much revitalization we needed, because I felt like we felt so burnt out because we saw everyone essentially leave the Bay.
Oh wow. Yeah.
You know, like our whole porn scene in a way kind of collapsed here, where when we were making stuff, we were doing it in Europe, we were doing it in other cities. We shot a movie in Chicago. Like we were literally just like, I don't know, we don't know anyone in the Bay to shoot with anymore. Everyone moved, everyone's on to other things. I felt like, and probably like when I moved, it felt like a lot of people were moving to the Bay Area to be porn stars, which is really weird to think about now because I feel like people do that in Vegas, people do that in LA, but you don't really see that here anymore.
Yeah. I feel like everyone I know moved to Vegas.
Right? Definitely. So I feel like it's so interesting when we found you and Lita that you guys really just revitalized us, I feel like. And we're just like, oh, wow, we found two amazing people to work with. And it's not even that we are shooting just the similar stuff. I just feel like where we're all coming from is very similar.
Mhm.
Like we're all kind of have the DIY punk background and being like, oh, this is how we want to portray our porn. This is what we want to do and really do it on our own terms.
Yeah, definitely. I'm very fortunate to have met y'all. And
I'm
yeah, it
yeah, if
warms my
that's
heart.
if there's anything that you can take from that, just please know how important your presence was to really just I can't imagine my career without East Bay Brats and just that we created that thing just so organically that we're all like, okay, let's just show up and we'll make a movie. And we did it like now 4 times.
I know it amazes me every time because yeah, what's so wild about it too is like we have a general idea of what we want to do. It's like, oh well, I brought this dress, so let's see what we can do if we all wear latex, I suppose. And yeah, it just unfolds so organically, and yeah, it blows my mind just considering like how little of a script there is,
Yeah.
and like some of the ideas we have like just completely go out the window and we come up with something completely different depending on what we have and what's functional and working at the space.
I feel like a lot of our ideas are like, oh, I'm going to spank this person for a scene. And then it turns into everyone being like, oh, why don't we make this a 5-person scene? And there's like an orgy going on and someone's getting electrocuted and caned. It's always like these, like if we wrote this stuff down, it'd be like, wow, this is going to be really hard to pull off. But I feel like it always
Mhm.
organically happens. That it's just like, oh, yeah, I have a vague idea if anyone wants to join.
Yeah, I think that's perfect. I think it's a great way to do it. Like just from like making my own independent clips, like if I have it scripted out too much, it becomes complicated and honestly not that much fun to do. But when it's all organic and you're just like, we'll see what happens. We'll figure it out. That's always going to be a way better product.
Yeah, I think that's why we all work creatively together so much because we have that element to it that we can do that.
Hmm.
And just like, yeah, truly from the East Bay Brat stuff, I just feel like it's like the most rewarding stuff I've done because it's like, wow, I can be a BDSM performer and then I can be like, okay, I'm going to put on regular clothes and like tennis shoes and shoot an entire scene and get really both aspects on it. And that we shoot it entirely just ourselves. It's just so cool to me that we're not hiring some fancy director from, you know, another company or hiring videographers or whatever. That it's just really us, I feel like is just such a great thing, especially as after the whole pandemic, like being able to do that was definitely
Yeah.
probably like was that yeah, that was last year, I guess. It's all blending in together.
Maybe that was 20. No, you're right. It was 2021. It's yeah, I'm having a hard time keeping track of
It's
time.
very hard, but yeah, I feel like that was like to me the I mean the pandemic's still going, but at least on some level I'm like, okay, there's some sort of normalcy again. We can
Hmm.
shoot porn, do it in a safe way and have it like work out, you know.
Yeah, most definitely. Yeah, I'm really excited to get back in the dungeon again.
Yeah, right. I'm like that's definitely the conversation I'm gonna bring up after the call. I'm like, so when?
Yeah.
um So, were you like when you first started working with Courtney, was it kind of the same as me where I'm just like, wow, I've liked so many of your movies and like what you're doing so creatively that you're a little bit like, whoa, I'm making a movie with this person. I'm actually doing this.
Yeah, I would know. I was kind of like I'm like nobody and you're like an icon and I'm like what are you doing with me? Like the first time we shot together, Chelsea admits like
Yeah.
I was nervous. I was very nervous.
Oh,
And
really?
oh yeah, but I don't know. I like handled it fine and it wasn't that
Yeah, I would
bad,
have never
really.
had any idea you were nervous during that scene.
I wasn't really nervous during the scene too much, but I think prior, just because like it was really new and different. And yeah, I mean it was a different way to make porn than what I was used to doing for sure. It felt a lot more professional than shooting out of my bedroom, that's for
We
sure.
were just shooting out of Courtney's bedroom.
Yeah, instead, exactly. Yeah. But yeah, everyone, you and Courtney were so accommodating, and it felt like really natural. And yeah, it's definitely a good fit. But yeah, at first, like I'm Lita hit me up and was telling me like, oh yeah, so like I think I have an opportunity for you to shoot with Courtney Trouble. And then oh, I'm like, what? How the fuck did you do that? Yeah, so I'm very grateful to Lita for putting us in touch, because would not have happened if it weren't for Lita being so outgoing.
Yeah, we like hung out at Lake Merritt and just talked about BDSM for like an hour. And we're like, okay, we should probably collaborate someday. And they're like, oh, yeah, I have a friend who's also doing this and you should reach out to them. And that's how I
Oh,
think I met you. And I'm like, oh, awesome. But yeah, we were just like, okay, let's just like talk at Lake Merritt and make sure we actually want to shoot shit together. And that's basically all it was, which is really funny. There had to have been people walking by just hearing our conversation that was super explicit.
oh yeah. I mean, that happens to me like every time I go out in public. I like talk about like just things that should never be spoken outside of a house.
Yeah, I think that's just like the coolest thing, that it was just such an organic thing and it wasn't really oh my God, we need to find two people to do this thing with.
Hmm.
That was really just when we worked with you the first time. I was like, oh wow, they're rad, they're local, they're no drama. Like I feel like we were so used to almost a certain type of person during the height of the whole Bay Area thing, where people were like very much trying to become famous off porn, or during like the height of the Tumblr thing, like people were doing porn to be cool. Like it was a cool thing to say, oh yeah, I have a queer porn out, you know?
Yeah. I mean, I do kind of feel like that was happening again, especially in 2020. Everybody got on OnlyFans.
Yeah, it's definitely
Yeah.
true.
And I think a lot of people realize from that, oh, making porn actually is not as lucrative as you might think, especially when you're starting out. Like it takes a while to build a following.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest misconception, that there's honestly people that think we're millionaires and shit. And it's like, no, especially in the Bay, you can be a
Yeah.
millionaire. And even that, you're like, I don't know, hopefully my rent doesn't go up.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, no, I think that is like a huge misconception, is that like it's really easy to present yourself in the sex industry as like, I would say like uh not necessarily that you're successful. It's like, yeah, obviously like we're doing something right, but you know, it's not as luxurious as you might think it is.
Yeah,
Like,
I
no,
think
this
it,
is a job. Like we make money to survive, especially in the Bay. It's like we're surviving to live here and live in these apartments that are way too expensive for
yeah.
houses or rooms.
Yeah, I feel like that's really the unique thing about Bay Area porn now, where, you know, no matter how much you're making, no matter how successful you are, it's still a struggle. And that's, I think, why so many people left who maybe weren't just as attached to here. I think the community
Mhm.
here is still obviously exists. And I think it's still an extremely gay and queer place, and extremely like kinky. I mean, there's like a giant BDSM flag, like, you know, a mile from my house. Like, you don't get that in most cities, you know? Are you all right?
Cooking on my coffee.
But yeah, I just think there is still so many great things about the Bay, but I do also look at Vegas and Michigan and wherever else often on Zillow and just being like, oh wow, we could live like this for half the price, you know?
Yeah, definitely.
Are you
Sorry.
all right? It's all right.
Yeah, I think I just swallowed a bunch of coffee grounds.
Oh no, that's always the worst.
Yeah, that was a
I
weird trip.
had
My bad.
I had that happen once. My partner made cold brew for me, and I didn't realize they didn't filter it yet, so I just poured it in a cup of coffee, and then I'm like camming and drinking it, and I'm like, wow, this coffee is really strange. There's like it's kind of gritty, and then I'm like, wow, all my teeth really hurt all of a sudden.
Oh, geez, yeah.
And then I was like, oh, I need to go to the dentist and handle some stuff because this triggered all of it.
Oh, damn. Okay, well, thankfully that didn't happen. I'm okay
Yeah.
now.
See,
Don't worry. It's just coffee.
relatable coffee story.
Oh, geez, what were we talking about before? Sorry.
Oh,
Oh, you
um,
mentioned, yeah, BDSM flag. It's still, yeah, no, the Bay Area for sure has a great community still, especially surrounded around kink. There's so many amazing places
mhm.
that we can use that are dungeon spaces, and still a great queer kink community and LGBTQ community as well.
I think we're so lucky that we have a dungeon that we can use basically nonstop. And I feel like for so many BDSM collectives, it's such a challenge to try to find a space or create a space for that. And honestly, here, like, even if we didn't have the dungeon we currently use, there's still 2 or 3 other dungeons in the Bay Area. And I think that's so truly a special thing that we have compared to, most places.
Yeah, and there's still people talking about making more. Um, one might shut down and then another one might open. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel like it's just very grassroots here. And I really like
Mhm.
that it's not a company or someone trying to make it rich by being like, oh, I can rent out a fetish space because of 50 Shades of Grey or some shit like that.
Mhm. Yeah, and it's like people who are authentically like into kink and into BDSM and who have been practicing it not only professionally but like lifestyle practitioners, excuse me, for long periods of time.
So obviously, like, you started shooting more stuff. Was there like a first shoot or a moment that made you realize that this was going to be more than just a one, like 1 or 2 off thing?
Um, hmm. I think like my first time shooting with Crashpad Series actually, like I kind of felt like that because that was like my first like paid studio shoot
Mm-hmm.
that felt like a lot more professional in the sense that like I got like paid that day. And
And like Jiz Lee's there, right?
yeah, just Lee there and Shine and yeah, I mean they had like a whole production space, like a space that's dedicated to shooting
Mhm.
porn. But I mean, even shooting like the first East Bay Brats too, like that was just so magical. That's still my favorite
Yeah.
East Bay Brats film. And it was like amazing that we were able to just pull it off like that and do it all ourselves.
That was the middle of the night one, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So we rented the dungeon. I think it was like 11 o'clock at night until 7 in the morning. Or was it like
Yeah.
9 or it was, we didn't leave until like 3 a.m., I believe.
Really? Wow.
And
I
it
don't know
was
how
like
we did
so
that.
hot. I just remember it was like, I think it was like August or something. It was just like miserably hot. We couldn't have the air on because you would hear it
Mm-hmm.
in
Oh
the
yeah.
audio. And we were
I know it
doing
was nighttime too, and it was still that hot. Weren't we all wearing latex though?
we were all wearing latex. We were all doing electro
Yeah.
stuff. So when you sweat more, it hurts a little bit more, I think.
Oh gosh. Yeah.
Like it was so much. And then I was like, oh, I'll do like a hood thing after. And I'm like 3 minutes. And then I'm like, I can't do this anymore.
Yeah. Now that hood, I know which one you're talking about. It's pretty thick and it's real leather, so yeah, it's gonna be pretty toasty.
Yeah, it seemed like such a good idea at first. And then I was like, oh, it's like 100 degrees in this dungeon right now. I can't do this.
It looked good though. We
Yeah.
got the shot we needed.
Yeah, I'm really proud of that one. They kind of all blend together to me. I
Yeah.
know you have like 2 medical scenes that you've done
Hmm.
in that room that both look amazing. I know I
Yeah, I think
edited
it's
both of
fun.
them and I'm just like, oh my God.
Yeah, those ones are so good.
Yeah. So like when you I remember probably my best memory of East Bay Brat stuff is when we called you when we got our first AVN nomination. And I think
Yeah.
you were at Trader Joe's or something.
Oh
And
yeah.
you were like, why is everyone blowing me up right now on like a
Oh, I
Tuesday
remember.
evening?
Yes. Yeah. No, I got back into my car after getting groceries, and I'm just like, is something wrong? Like, what's going on? But everyone was like super excited, and yeah, that was a really great moment.
Yeah, that just means so much to me because like we were up against companies like Kink.com. That's like,
Yeah, that
you know,
was wow.
I mean, that we own all this stuff ourselves. It's entirely equal. I just feel like both the content wise and just ethically wise, what we're trying to do, I just feel like really combined with that and just made me so proud. And yeah, even though it wasn't a in-person AVN that year, we at least got to
Mhm.
do a Zoom call with all of us, which was really fun.
Well, wait, no, the first year
That
was,
was Chelsea Submits, I think.
oh, you're right. Oh my gosh,
Yeah,
yeah. See, it's all blending together.
I know.
I wasn't
And
even there for that though.
yeah, so do you want to tell your story of your first AVN?
Oh my gosh, yeah, my
I didn't
first
even see
AVN.
you during it.
No, you were. We saw. No. Oh my God, you're right. I didn't see you.
I came in like the day before. I'm like, I'll go in on Friday.
Oh damn.
It
Yeah.
wasn't even COVID related to me. I was just like, oh,
COVID
I've done
hadn't
this every year
officially
before.
started.
It's fine. Yeah,
Yeah, but that was January 2020. So like 2 months before COVID had like officially started, at least in
in the
the
States.
United
Yeah.
States, even though it was still going on in other parts of the world. We just weren't paying attention.
Yep.
Interestingly, I think in December of 2019, a coworker of mine did actually tell me that it was going on in China. And I was like, oh, that sucks. I hope that that gets better. And then, yeah,
I
did not
totally
heed the
viewed it.
warning.
I viewed it the same way as like SARS and bird flu. I'm like, oh, it's gonna be overhyped. It's gonna be like maybe 1,000 people somewhere. Most people are gonna survive.
Yeah, no,
Very,
that's what I
very
was
wrong.
thinking too. I think like the week before the shutdown, that's exactly what I was thinking. So it was like, oh, it'll be fine. Like this happens every time before a big election.
Yeah, I
But
was like, this just happens every few years. There's always like Ebola or Zika virus or something.
hmm But yeah, back to AVN. So it was my first AVN. I was super, super nervous. And it was like a week before was my birthday too. And I ended up getting like super sick from probably some coworkers, and my whole household got it. And I ended up like leaving work early and was sick on my birthday. And I was like, okay, well, I'm gonna get better before AVN. And then I was almost getting better, and I was so nervous about the trip that I like didn't sleep at all the night before.
Oh wow.
Um yeah, Courtney and I like took the flight together, and they had to basically like coach me through the airport just so I could like, you know, get my fucking shit together because I was so out of it, and I started feeling like a little sick again. And by the time we got there, it just kept getting worse. And Courtney was telling me about the avian flu, not the avian flu, but the
It,
AVN flu.
it
And apparently, and
the
she was,
listeners of the
or
podcast are aware of the avian flu.
yeah, and
It's
Courtney was joking that I brought it with me. And so yeah, I ended up being sick at my first AVN. I did pull through and do one shoot with Will Tile. And interestingly, he never got sick or anything. I checked in with him, and I shared a hotel room with Lita and Courtney, and no one else got sick. So that's what makes me think it wasn't COVID. Courtney is still
yeah.
convinced that I had COVID, but I don't think it was. But
See,
yeah,
I
it
thought
was
that's how the story
totally
was
a
gonna
flu.
go. I thought the story was gonna be like I had COVID the whole time.
I didn't cough really. And I mean, maybe it was, but like no one else got it.
Yeah.
It wasn't respiratory. But yeah, I just like, it just was at the point where I was like, I can't do a convention. I can't go to this award ceremony. Like, I feel like shit. And so I ended up leaving early. It was a huge bummer. Um, and yeah, that was my first AVN. I like got all, worried and psyched up about it. And then I like probably made myself more sick because I like stressed myself out. So lesson learned, Don't stress yourself out before AVN. It's not worth it.
Well, hopefully we make more porn that we get the next one nominated again and it's in person again, hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I think by 2023, I guess at this point, I think that'll happen because last year was also virtual and
Yeah.
uh, yeah. I
It's
mean,
just
they've started doing some in-person awards. Your award
yeah.
ceremony was in person,
Yeah,
so
it was in
that'll
October.
happen.
Yeah, I felt like it felt pretty safe at the time. Actually, we went to a wedding the day before, and it was supposed to be an all
Mhm.
vaccinated wedding, but they checked no one's vaccination cards and no one wore masks. So I
Mhm.
was honestly way more concerned about that than the award show. Yeah, Why Not did a really good job. There were no fans there, and then it was all everyone was vaccinated, which at the time still felt like an important thing. Now I
Mhm.
feel like I don't know. I feel like people being vaccinated doesn't mean they can't spread it anymore. And I don't know. It's just so
Yeah, I know. That's how
confusing.
I feel about it too. It's still very nebulous. There's been like no guidance about like what's actually going on. My only understanding is like if you are vaccinated, you're gonna have a lower viral load, but I'm not a doctor, so
I know. No one take COVID advice from this podcast, please. I feel
yeah,
like this
please,
comes up
please
on every
don't.
episode, and then
I
people
could
are
be wrong.
I'm like, I could be very wrong about all of this. So I'm assuming
Yeah.
no one is. If you are getting your COVID information from this podcast, you really should not.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even know if you want to get your advice from the CDC since they recently
Yeah,
changed it to like 5 days of
it's
isolation, which is, I think, ridiculous. You can totally still be contagious after 5 days of having an illness, especially this one.
yeah, I feel like it's such a active thing that, especially as being a performer right now, you have to worry about because I did a week of AVN episode, so it
Yeah.
was people who were nominated. So you had to be fairly active during the year. And I think of the four people I interviewed, three of them had COVID, and a total of those three had COVID 5 times.
Oh my God, are you
So
serious?
yeah, someone got it. Two people got it
Whoa.
twice, and then one person got it another time. And actually, I had to miss the interview because they currently had COVID. So I
Oh
feel
my
like it's
goodness.
just such a hard thing to know what's the right thing to do, and just trying to get the right testing. And I also think for me, we've shot together twice now since this whole pandemic. I'm trying to keep it really as
Oh
close
yeah.
to people I know and trust as much as possible because you really don't know right now.
Yeah, it's still super up in the air. Like I still do semi-regular COVID tests. I have a bunch of at-home tests and yeah, if I'm like planning on meeting up with people that I haven't shot with before, I test before and then a few days I test after. So it's a lot to keep in mind, but it's like it's also not a huge deal considering the
Yeah.
fact that like we already have been doing TTS testing. Um, and then yeah, just like being mindful of keeping each other safe. So
Yeah.
it's just one more thing. Yeah, the only thing that's just weird about it is like, you know, one day you can test negative and the next you can test positive. So it's like super important just to monitor your health and your symptoms.
Yeah. I also feel like there might be some like mystery variants going around that aren't coming up on tests that might be a strain. I went through a really weird sickness lately after a shoot where I was like totally out of it for over a week.
Hmm.
It's just like didn't come up as COVID, but it's certainly something and had a lot of COVID symptoms. So I feel like it's
Oh,
just so
really?
hard to know right now.
Yeah. Huh. Yeah. No, that's a good point. But yeah, I think it's like if you are feeling sick, it's like not even worth hanging out with people. I was supposed to hang out with a couple friends last week and they assured me it wasn't COVID. And I was like, let's postpone. Not worth it.
I feel like this era gives everyone a reason to cancel for no reason. If you don't
I
want to hang
know.
out, it's just like,
Like,
oh,
I have a
well,
sniffle.
I'm feeling a little under the weather today. And no one's going to be like, oh, that's too bad. They'll be like, you're doing the right thing.
I know, right? But it's great though too, because like, you know, it's making you realize like, okay, so if you work like a regular job that's, you know, fucking paid sick leave and all that fun
Yeah.
stuff, like they're taking you being sick more seriously. They don't want you coming into work if you're sick. Whereas I feel like
Yeah.
before it was like, oh, whatever, just power through your flu.
For sure. 100%. and especially in the Bay, I feel like the whole, I talked about this earlier, just like the whole Silicon Valley culture here, it's just nonstop work and no one ever stops. And I feel like we don't
Yeah.
even have the thing like in New York where they're like, if you can make it here, you can make it anywhere. It's just like, oh yeah, you just need to work more. And that's kind of all it is here. And it's like kind of
Yeah.
never ending, where I don't feel like there's really a finish line. Like, even if you're the most successful porn performer in the world, like let's say you're like Jenna Jameson, I bet Jenna Jameson here would still be like, wow, rent's really expensive. You know, there's no escaping it.
Yeah. And that's the thing. Like you were saying, like there's no end to it. You're gonna have to keep working. Like the grind never ends here.
Yeah, unless you're like the CEO of like Salesforce or something, I don't feel like there's just a kind of way that makes it, oh, I don't have to worry about money in the Bay.
Yeah, exactly. And unfortunately, yeah, we are not those people. And I would not want to be one of those people.
Right? Yeah, not at all. But so what kind of goes into your creative process when you prepare for a scene?
um I usually like try to think about like at least like some key points that I want to touch on. And maybe it's the thing I'm going to say or something I'm going to do, but like the rest of it just kind of like I have to wing it. I don't plan it out too much. Yeah, so yeah, especially if I'm like shooting with other people, I do like to discuss with them prior, at least like what our goal is and
Yeah,
like
just like
kind
an
of
outline.
yeah, an outline. I like to have an outline at least. But other than that, it's not planned too much. It just kind of it comes naturally, and yeah, especially with collaborations, it's just two people bringing their own creativity to the table. Yeah, it's hard to describe a creative process, that's for sure.
Yeah, I think that's what's so special about East Bay Brats is it's so much just improvisational that, you know,
Mhm.
we really just go in there with a vague idea of like, oh, I want to use this toy. I want to use this bondage thing or this fucking machine or something. And everything just kind of comes together after that.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. That's pretty much it is like we figure out outfits prior and we might coordinate a little bit with that. And then also like what are we using and like generally what are we doing in the scene? What are we okay with? What are we not okay with? Um, but yeah, other than that, that's there's really not a whole lot of like script or anything. I mean, there's no script.
Oh
It's all
no.
improv.
Just imagine if East Bay Rats had a script.
It would be bad.
I like, I don't know. I feel like anything that comes up in it, it has to be improvisational or it doesn't feel real. Especially with
Yeah.
BDSM, I feel like if you had like the Dom be have a written line, that would be so weird.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think that's what one thing that makes like why it's so organic and like it's real because it's like
Mhm.
I remember especially when we were shooting the Sibian scene, like it was my first time using it, so it was all just like very authentic my reaction to it. It was just so intense, like you could see it in my face.
I like both you and Courtney never used it before, so both your reaction was like, "Oh, it just like buzzes. It's not going to do that much." And I'm just like, "No, it's going to." I'm like, "It will."
Oh yeah, no, it did. It was pretty fucking intense, but totally worth it and awesome. I would do it again.
Yeah, I feel like we really need to utilize more fucking machines. I think that's like just the best thing about the dungeon we use is we have access to all these things that, you know, would usually be a toy that's $1,500 or $2,000 or something. And I really feel like the Sibian just sounds like a small like go-kart or like snowmobile or something.
Leaf blower, I don't know.
Yeah, it's just so loud and so intense.
Yeah, but yeah, definitely creates some really amazing sensations and obviously a great scene.
Yeah, everyone should definitely check that scene out on East Bay Brats 4. I think it's like the third scene, maybe.
Yeah, we did four scenes, I think. Well, no, wait, how many did we do?
We did,
One of
yeah,
them was split into
4.
two
There
in the
was the
film.
caning one I did with Jupiter,
Oh, that's right.
and
And
then
then
the one where my tits got destroyed. My
Oh
tits
yeah, and
were
then
double the
Courtney was flawed.
size for like a month.
A month, really? I thought it was
Like
only a
at
week.
least like 2 weeks. Like they
Damn.
were out to here. And my partner was like, how are your boobs this big right now? I'm like, I don't know.
How were your piercings after that?
It was
Because you have your
fine.
nipples pierced. Oh wow.
They were like my tits were just a weird color and like
Hmm.
really big. And like that was kind of it. Every time I would look down, I'd be like, wow, this is what implants are kind of look like, I guess.
Hmm. Well, good to know if I ever want to try that out for
Yeah,
a month.
if you want your boobs to be bigger for a week, and as long as no one has to see the miscoloration, you're fine.
Hmm. Okay.
But
Yeah, I hope next time we can actually use the fucking machine. Because last time it was
same.
out of commission.
Yeah, I really want to do a scene with one. I used one once at the armory when I worked there camming. It was really intense. I feel like the hard part is just trying to get it like perfect, that it's going out and in the right amount.
Yeah.
You really
Yeah,
have to line that up.
I shot with Filthy Femdom last month and I used it for the first time. It was really awesome.
That's so
But yeah,
cool.
it's a lot that goes into it to make sure that it's like the perfect height, the perfect rhythm. And of course, like the way that my body is when I'm coming, I like push things out that are
Yeah.
penetrating me.
Mhm.
So that added a whole nother level of logistics to it. Like, oh, it fell out again. Stop.
Do you have like a dream scene or something you really want to do that you haven't been able to do, like on set?
Hmm. I mean, I've always wanted to do a gangbang. Um, so yeah, something kind of like your gangbang when you were the party favor.
I'm like, we can do that like
I
with our
know.
collective. I'm like,
We just need more people. Well,
I
I mean, that's
mean,
the thing. It's like when you're adding so many people, like someone's gonna get left out. And then because
yeah.
there's only so much you can do. You only have so many holes.
I mean, I feel like if we had the entire crew there, all five of us on one, I think we could make that happen.
Yeah, totally. And with BDSM, it's like I don't mind if like one person's fucking me and then another person is like just like spanking me. It's just yeah, getting surrounded by that many people, it can just be very like crowded.
It's yeah, I really like doing group scenes like that. Like it's so much fun and just like honestly, like I feel like what porn is advertised as almost in a way of like you're gonna get fucked by three people at once and you're gonna do all this intense stuff. And like for me, that's kind of what I like to do in porn, just to have those kind of experiences.
Yeah,
But
I think that would be really cool. But yeah, that's one thing I've wanted to do for a long time. Um, I mean, yeah, I don't know. That's such a hard thing. Like I'm like trying to think of like what I've always wanted to do. I mean that's the one that comes to mind though. I'm sure there's other things. I'm just blanking when I'm on the spot.
you're totally good. Yeah, I'm sure if it doesn't happen in East Bay Brats, I'm sure you're gonna get that opportunity soon. But I feel like if you even mention them, the East Bay Brats, like our group text, everyone would be like, oh yeah, of course, we can do that.
Yeah. We just have to make it different than yours.
Yeah,
I mean,
I'm
there's
sure
so
we
many
can.
fun things we can do though, like something I can be strapped to that we haven't been strapped to before.
Do you want to like do DP in your gangbang or is that too intense?
Yeah, that would be
Hell
cool. I'm into
yeah.
that. Yeah. Yeah, I've been slowly working my way up towards that. I mean, no, I've done it before, but
Oh, you've done it? Wow, that's really intense.
yeah, yeah.
Congratulations. That's
Unfortunately, I didn't film it.
accomplishment.
Yeah. But no, that's like been something I've been working on in the last, I don't know, 6 months to a year, especially like, yeah, with COVID, I've had a lot of spare time to work on anal training. So
I feel like this really is people seeing the behind the scenes of how the East Bay Brats collaborate now. Where it's just like, oh, I've
mhm,
always wanted to do this. And then us being like, oh, okay.
yeah. Yeah, pretty much. That is a lot of what goes behind goes into our scenes. It's just like, well, I've wanted to do this. This is probably a good opportunity to do it. It's like, oh, I have these heels that I think are really cool. Like we should use that in a scene.
I think that's just what's so cool about it because it's just so organically creative that it's not this thing where we're like, we have to come up with four scenes right now. It's just like, oh, this is something I always wanted to do. I haven't had a chance to do it yet, you know?
Yeah, I think what's so great about it is like, even though it's like we're like, okay, well, we've already used this room before. It's like, okay, well, we haven't done it in this combination, and we've never
Mhm.
used any of these toys. Like that's what's so much fun about BDSM. It's like it just never ends with what you can do.
Yeah, we just have so many toys and so much furniture there that I really feel like we could just do this forever and not really repeat anything in a way.
Yeah. And what's cool too is like I was even talking to Courtney about like, we could rent out another space.
Yeah.
There are other spaces that are like beautiful
Yeah,
and
there's
have
one I
lots
really
of
want to
fun
do.
toys.
Do you know about the Pink Dungeon in LA? I
Yes.
want to
Oh my
do
gosh.
East
I
Bay
would
Rats
love to
5
do
there.
East Bay Flats there. Oh my God. That would be
I know.
amazing.
I
I
feel
would
like we
have to
should
get
all make a
pink
field trip.
latex.
I know we'd
Yes.
all have to.
We'd have
Yeah,
to.
we all have to get pink latex if that happens.
Yeah, I would be so stoked to shoot there. I love that place. It's beautiful. I mean, I haven't been there. I've only seen pictures, but someday I will tour LA and I will rent that space. It'll happen.
Yeah, I feel like that needs to be our East Bay Rats field trip where it's just like everyone needs to meet in LA. This is our like band tour thing.
It's not that far. We can all totally do it. I mean, what Jupiter and Lita are both in Vegas. That's not that far for
Then
them.
everyone else is here and it's like,
Road trip.
or an
Whatever you
$80
guys
flight.
want.
Either way.
Shit, I'll drive everybody. Wouldn't
Oh,
that be
you have a
fun?
car? See, this is
Yeah.
so funny about porn in the Bay Area that I'm like, we've hung out probably at least 10 times. I'm like, wait, you have a car?
Yeah.
That's
I
so
don't know
funny.
though. These gas prices lately, I'm like,
Oh,
maybe I'll
yeah.
start riding my bike more.
Yeah, that's so funny. I feel like that's such a Bay Area thing because it's like so many times you just have no reason that you would know the other person has a car.
Yeah, true. I know that's like usually how it is. It's just like, well, yeah, we're both at this space, like, but we didn't talk about how we got here.
Yeah, for real. Yeah, so have you like shot in many other places or have you mostly just shot in the Bay?
Um, Mostly the Bay. I mean, yeah, I did like one collaboration in Vegas before I had to tap out and go home early. So that was it. Yeah. I mean, yeah, my porn career started at like a really terrible time, like right before the pandemic started. So I feel like now that things are starting to open up again and feel a little safer, I'm sure I'll be able to travel more and yeah, hopefully shoot in other areas and with other people.
Yeah, I feel like you have
Yeah,
a very
I
good balance between porn and your actual life. Like I feel like there's so many people that were in that same position who I talked to who were like, well, I moved to Vegas or wherever to do content trade around that time. It's just like that's what they're 100% in on. And I think like talked about this with Mona Wales too. It's just like I feel like it's such an underrated thing having a work-life balance. And I
mhm.
think like you have such a good one.
Sometimes it varies. Like in 2019, I was working 3 jobs and that was a
Wow.
lot. Yeah. Um, so it got pretty overwhelming for a while. And like I think like 2 weeks before the shutdown, I got to the point where I was like, I think I need to like not work as much because this isn't working. And then of course, yeah, I got my wish. Careful what you wish for. And yeah. And yeah, now I'm just like kind of going back to working more. And I do have it scheduled now where I have 2 days off in a row. So that's
That's
good.
great. Having a weekend is so important. It took me so
Yeah.
long to finally get to it. It was until like
Yeah.
literally the pandemic where I'm like, okay.
Yeah. But I mean it's still hard. Like today's supposed to be one of my days off and like I spent an hour this morning doing emails.
Yeah.
And it's like it happens. When you have your own business, you sometimes just have to keep pushing. And yeah, there's a lot of work that goes into like when you're doing self-employed porn and
Mhm.
not only just porn, but like I'm also like an in-person professional dominatrix in Switch. Like there's a lot that goes on behind the scenes that people don't realize.
Yeah, I feel like that's kind of the reality of porn, that I feel like people just think it's all glamorized and it's all sex, and that's the hard part about porn. But it's honestly all like the boring back end, that's like answering emails, getting paperwork back from people,
Oh,
just kind of all this
God,
boring ass
paperwork.
shit. Right? Exactly. And I think people want this story that's like, oh, porn, it's all a party all the time. It's like the actual fun part of porn is such a small amount compared to all the bullshit you have to deal with.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, like lately my thing is like I've been working on like I have to make sure I have all my paperwork in line. And yeah, going forward, like that's something you have to keep doing just with like all these new policies and all these new fucking bills that they've passed, like the
Yeah.
MasterCard bullshit, and it just doesn't end. And yeah, not only that, but like even like preparing for shoots, like oh my God, like when people tell me 11 a.m. call time, I'm like, oh, I have to get up
Ugh.
so early. It's like
Yeah.
11 doesn't even seem that early, but it's like, no, there's a lot that goes into this. If you want me to like fucking get my ass fucked, that's another hour of work.
Yeah. I would. Yeah. Literally in my head, I'm like, okay, so I have to wake up at 8 at least.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's one thing I like kind of, I will say I had a misconception about. It's like, oh, I can, when I'm self-employed, I'm going to have so much time off. And then I'm also like, I'm going to be able to pick my own schedule. It's like, no, not so much. Someone wants to meet at 11 a.m. and it takes this long to get ready. Yeah, I'm going to be getting up at like 7:30, and
Yeah.
that is not ideal for me. I'm a night owl.
Yeah. Whenever you have those early porn shoots, it's awful. Like waking up at 6 a.m. to do porn, and you're just like, what the fuck is this? I hate it so much. It's like I didn't get into porn to wake up at 6 in the morning.
Yeah, most definitely. But you know, I still love it. Despite that, I'd much rather be doing this than working for Salesforce, for instance, or any
True.
office job or
Yeah, so I have a few more questions for you. First off, thanks so much for talking to me today. I'm just so stoked that I got to have you on the podcast, and yeah, just talk about all this like East Bay Brat stuff that I wanted to talk about for so long. Um,
yeah, I'm so glad we were able to get together and do this. I mean, even if it is like not in person, but it's fucking awesome. And I
yeah,
appreciate you so much for asking
yeah,
me.
likewise. I'm so stoked to have you on, and just yeah, just so glad that we connected and made so much amazing smut together, and all the stuff we're going to in the future, I'm sure. So
Yeah, definitely. Can't wait.
So what are you most proud of during your career? Because you've been in porn for at least, I think, like 4 years now, right? 3, 4 years,
Can't.
which is a
Yeah, I
long
mean,
porn career. The average porn career is like a year and a half. So
that's wild. That's so short. I don't get that. Well, I mean, it's not like I'm not like mainstream. Like I mostly do independent work. And I think that is, yeah, it's so different doing it that way. But like, yeah, I guess I started in like 2018. What was the question?
what are you most proud of during your career?
Oh, most proud of my bad. Okay.
You're totally good.
East Bay Brats for sure. Like, I love that it's queer porn, DIY, BDSM. Like those are things that are all so important to me. And also just like shooting with you and Courtney, like you two are icons and
Aw.
you have added so much to the queer porn community. And yeah, it's just like it's opened up like so much for me just like as a performer and also like an artist, like straight up like what we do is art. Like oh my God, if
Yeah,
you watch
100%.
fucking East Bay Brats, like any of those films, like the fucking editing is so good and the
So
music
good.
and like
Yeah, your
just
partner
like
does all the
what
music
everyone
for it
brings to the
too.
table. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I feel like it really has the feeling that's really just a whole little like I just relate to being in a band. That's like definitely how I feel, where I'm like, okay, there's these 5 people and
Yeah.
I know we're gonna keep making stuff, and you know, really a real creative connection and stuff. Like I really just
Mm-hmm.
want you to come away from this podcast. I kind of do this with a few different people I've had on, where I'm like, I have the one thing I want to convey to them that they get through their head, like what you joining us has helped us so much. And just like I don't think any of this would have been possible without you and Lita joining us and making all this stuff happen. Like I feel like
Oh, thank you so much.
you guys are so important to Trouble Films and just Bay Area queer porn as a whole, that we've just continued to do this when most of the scenes essentially gone. Like everyone just kind of left, and you know, that whole kind of like big queer porn era kind of disappeared. And then that we found you guys, it's just so great. And you guys are both in such a genuine place, and you want to make porn for the same reasons we want to make porn. We want to make cool art and shoot the stuff that other companies told us we can't shoot, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Well, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think one thing that's like so great about the East Bay Brats Collective and the films are like I even though it's like, yeah, kink does make BDSM porn, this is totally different. Like
Yeah, I think it's more hardcore.
it's more hardcore and it's more real and it's fucking queer and awesome. And it's not catered towards the straight community.
And that we all like equally own it. It's not like one director being like, okay, I have a BDSM site and I'm hiring these people. That we
Mhm.
just all collectively own everything we do, everything split. It just makes me so happy that it's like that, you know?
Yeah, no, and that's something that's really unique that makes it so special.
Yeah, I think that it both has the DIY ethic and, you know, the way we're actually making it, but also with how we want it to be split and everything, I think is just so
So
honestly great on
anarchist and
both
punk
ends.
rock.
Truly on both ends. It's like we're doing all this the way it should be done. And it just makes me so happy that it's all collectively owned as much as it is, you know, DIY in other ways. So yeah, I definitely feel like that's the anarchist shit.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So if you could magically change one thing in porn and that's magically different tomorrow, what would it be? This is
Ooh,
my only like BuzzFeedy question.
only one thing. Damn.
If
I
you
mean, I
want a
guess
second, I can tell you mine too.
I mean the thing that comes to mind is like more inclusivity. So like
Mhm.
yeah, essentially like I don't know, I really want to steer away from like the petite white female that's
Yeah.
like always basically winning every year for AVN.
Hmm.
Like, yeah, I think like more Black women, more people of color in general,
Hmm.
more trans people. Yeah, I think like bringing, bringing those communities together and also bringing them to the front
Yeah. I
and
think,
BBWs too, and like celebrating like all different bodies for sure.
yeah, I think that's a
That
really good
makes
answer.
sense.
I think it just needs to be, I think the next focus in porn really needs to be a focus on being more inclusive race wise. I
Hmm.
think like as far as trans stuff, it's come so far in my career.
Yeah.
Like when I think the first year I was nominated was like the second year they even allowed trans women on the stage for their award. So like it was so back there. And then this last year, the biggest the Grand Reel at AVN, which is their biggest award, was won by a trans film this year. And no one really got mad. There was no backlash. So I feel like if that can happen for like performers of color, that they can get the same spotlight and actually have their issues heard in the same way trans
Hmm.
people were able to. I think that's just like where porn needs to go next to be more inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. That's a great point. Definitely. I agree.
Yeah, I feel like there's so many great performers over the years who didn't get the awards they maybe deserved
Hmm.
because they were people of color. And I just feel like if AVN and XBiz has to go the other way for a while, and you know, it's 5 years in a row with a black performer winning performer of the year, I think that's more than fine. I'm okay if white people take a break winning awards for a few years.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I mean, that's what it's been for, that's what it's been.
Yeah, for like 30 some years.
Yeah.
There's obviously different performers throughout history of AVN and XBiz who are obviously exceptions, but I feel like just as a whole, I feel like that's really where porn needs to go, just to be
Yeah.
more
I agree.
inclusive.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that that is a good answer. And I think that would be great to see that happen.
Yeah, I think you answered that. Really good answer right there. I feel like there's just so many ways people can go with that. So that's
Yeah.
always like to sprinkle in at the end, even though it's the most BuzzFeedy.
Mhm. But
So we're
it's important. It's like we need to bring in like what we want to see and
for sure.
speak up for that.
Yeah, I think that's
Especially,
why.
yeah, being white women, like it's really important to use your platform to
Yeah.
speak for the things we want to see and advocate for that.
Yeah, especially I feel like because I feel truly there's no ceiling for trans women in the industry anymore after
Mhm.
this last thing. Like, I think there could be a trans film that could win it again in 2 years. And just that porn's like the only place that trans people can exist, or at least trans women can exist with no ceilings. It's
Mhm.
just so crazy to think about where it was, 5 years ago when they were still calling trans women like trannies and she-males and
Oh
God
yeah.
knows whatever else.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, where can everyone find you on social media and stuff so they can keep up with your work and hopefully see your future gangbang?
Yeah. So yeah, I'm on Twitter and my handle is Ruby Riots Model. So that's RIOTS, not to be confused with the wrestler. And then
I just love that it's like not to be confused with the wrestler.
yeah. She did change her name, but if you look me up, you will still find her. So if you look me up on the internet, you have to type in Ruby Riots porn. And then on Instagram, I'm at Ruby Riots 666.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. If someone
Well,
recently asked me if I was a Satanist because of that, I'm like, no, I just like metal.
yeah, I'm like, my partner was recently asking me that. They're like, why do you do that? I'm like, oh, because I was like into black metal when I was like 18.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically where it kind of ended. I'm like, I still want to rep that. I don't think I'm putting on corpse paint anytime soon again, but
Yeah. That's not really my, honestly, I'm not into black metal so much. I prefer death metal.
I'll show you some bands that I think can woo you over.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, I will after the
I'm
podcast.
open.
All right. Well, thank you for being on the podcast.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me. It was awesome.
All right, bye everyone.
Bye.